Good morning, everyone. We will now be starting with Mr. Sachin and Mr. Venkatesh from Baxter Healthcare, and their topic will be Next Gen Framework, Performance and Scalability Testing. I would like to invite them up on stage.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Sachin, and I'm joined by Venkatesh. And today we are presenting on the next gen framework for performance and scalability testing. I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Sachin Kodagali, and I'm principal engineer at test. I have over 17 years of experience in e-commerce and currently with the healthcare domain. And I have worked across functional automation and performance testing. Venkatesh.
Hi, as you know, my name is Venkatesh. I am a staff software engineer for reliability and performance. I have about 17 years of IT experience and worked in various phases of software development life cycle, right from tools development, firmware validation, test automation. Right now, I am doing reliability and performance for microservices. Thank you, Sachin.
Thanks, Venkatesh. Okay, let's quickly go through the agenda for today. We'll basically introduce the current performance test frameworks and how the next gen framework basically solves some of the problems or the issues which exist with the current performance frameworks. Then we'll talk about the key areas of the next gen framework. And the two important aspects we would talk about with the next gen framework is applying the machine learning techniques for test planning. So typically the test scenarios or the load model are some of the critical inputs to the performance framework. So we would see how machine learning can help make them efficient. And also we look at the challenges with respect to applying those techniques via machine learning. Then I would give it to Venkatesh later in the second half of this presentation, where he'll talk about the bottlenecks of the performance tools. And using a use case, he will basically tell us how we can scale through the containers and how we can avoid those bottlenecks. Okay, let's get started then. So, as you all know, the current frameworks, right? Some of the most important tools we use and we design a framework. Typically, we predict the load numbers. So, we get production logs and we deduce or predict the load numbers for a year or so. And that will be our input to our performance tests. Similarly, we will also evaluate the test scenarios. In most of the cases, we would use the most important or most used functional scenarios, and those would be taken as inputs to our performance script. As you also know, right, with the amount of applications being used by users, the peaks and the troughs we have, it's important that we scale our applications. So which means we need to do a lot of peak and spike load performance tests, which means we would also need infrastructure which is typically a VM and which is very infrastructure heavy, and it is a costly solution. Also, the performance test frameworks, so the tools we use are API focused and they are not GUI focused. And we'll try to address that need also when later Venkatesh should address that. The final thing we also use with frameworks is the monitoring, where basically we talk about response times, right, or the server side metrics, and we stitch together a report, and we would then follow our regular software development life cycle for filing the defects. So the main problems with the current framework could be that the inputs to the performance testing, right, the load number or the scenarios are not efficient. So in the next gen framework, we are proposing approaches where we can use machine learning techniques for test plan management. And later, Venkatesh should talk about scaling via the lightweight containers. Let me move to the critical areas of the next gen framework. As you see on the slide deck, as I already explained, the test scenarios and setting up the load test environment, obviously where we input the load model. So we feel that we can apply the machine learning techniques here to efficiently provide us the test inputs. The other critical area is the scaling using containers. So let me talk a little bit more about the machine learning aspects and how it is better than the traditional techniques. So as you see, test scenarios. So typically we look at the functional scenarios and we use those test scenarios regularly in our performance tests. But the problem with that is the ever changing applications, the needs, the way the users use the applications, right? It is not efficient to just use whatever is functionally tested. So it's important for us to go through the production logs and determine the number of page views and the server side metrics. and rank the functional scenarios, which can be used for performance testing. With that, what will happen is the coverage of our performance testing would be much better, and we can catch issues early, as we would be using different scenarios based on our the way the users are using the application. The traditional techniques would baseline the numbers, but it's a stale approach because the test scenarios are fixed and it doesn't change often. But with machine learning, the coverage would be much better. The only problem which we one of the main problems with the machine learning would be that the feeding the updated data, as you know, our model we need to train and we need to keep feeding with the latest data, so that would be important. Otherwise we'll end up with overfitting and underfitting. Next we come to the load model. So in load model, typically what we do is we use numbers from sales and marketing team, the production numbers, and we would predict the numbers for a year. But these numbers are largely skewed, as in, for example, if I have a load number of 10,000 now, and if I want to predict it for 2022, I would say get 15,000 as my number. But due to various market conditions, pandemic or geopolitical situation, that number may be less or more. So it's critical that we again use regression kind of models to approach this and fine tune these numbers regularly based on the market needs. With that, what will happen is the numbers are much more practical and dependable as we are looking at each market and devising the total overall load model number. So with using machine learning, obviously the numbers are practical. With the traditional technique, it is not realistic, it is not practical. Applying machine learning techniques. So as you know, whatever we have discussed so far, basically the machine learning design here, right? That's what is being shown on the left hand side. We typically get the data from production, then we de-identify the data, as in we remove the patient or the sensitive kind of information from this, and then we apply feature engineering, where we basically clean up the data, we merge some of the features, and then we form the training data. We'll also set aside some test data, which is our golden sample of data. Then we start developing the model. We use unsupervised or supervised learning techniques based on the need, and then we develop the model. We validate the model using the metrics like accuracy, confusion metrics, and so on. Then we retune this model. Finally, we use the golden set or golden sample test data, and then we check how the model is performing or predicting or classifying. So in this case, we can definitely think of using unsupervised testing techniques or learning from the machine learning, where we can cluster the results based on the number of page views and the server side metrics, right? For load model, we can use the regression kind of model where it can predict based on the existing features and per region, per country, so that I don't get skewed numbers. Now coming to the challenges with respect to machine learning. So one of the main challenges is overfitting and underfitting. So overfitting is typically where my model performs well on training, but it doesn't perform well on testing. That may be because the model has the data has a lot of noise, right? Or a lot of the outliers, for example. The underfitting is basically the model is simple enough to not provide the right predictions or outputs. Data quality. So our data may not be proper. Again, it may have a lot of noise, or the data quality of data we are getting from production may not be good. So that's the other challenge with machine learning. The third challenge is relevant features. We should have the right amount of features, and ideally, if the logs don't have values to certain important fields, then we again it won't predict the output properly with machine learning. So that's what I had on the machine learning and how do we solve that efficiently for test inputs. I would hand it over to Venkatesh, who will talk about scaling through containers and how we can avoid the bottlenecks with respect to the performance tools using next-gen framework. Over to you, Venkatesh.
Thank you, Sachin, and good morning once again to everyone. And thank you to going through the test planning approach. So far, we have discussed about the usage of A and ML in performance test planning. Now it's time to shift gears and discuss about execution part of it, which is more critical as well. First, we will be presenting you the bottlenecks and then the use cases that motivated us to come out with a new framework, especially for our organizations. See, in these use cases or the the example that I have given and even the implementation is related to the healthcare industry, because both of us, myself and Sachin, we work for healthcare industry, and most of the examples are relevant to that. But similar examples can be provided in multiple areas as well. Now let's talk about the bottlenecks. The first and foremost important is predefined scale approach. Yes, whenever we have to start a performance test with with the legacy tools that are available, the scale is always fixed. So first I fix the scale, then I start my execution. There is no way I can change the scaling factors during the execution time. If at all I have to do that, I will have to stop my execution, then change, and then restart the test. That's one of the bottleneck. The second one is managing scaling is laborious. Of course. Yes. In the industry, many people use the master slave technique in order to manage the scaling. The master slave technique is always, it's supported in various other tools that are available. It is supported in Selenium, it is supported in JMeter. What happens if at all I have to scale by one user? I will have to stop the test. I will have to create one VM. I'll have to install all the applications that are required, then tie that particular VM to your cluster, and then again you restart the test. It can take any time between 15 to 30 minutes to scale up any user at the cost of stopping the test. The third one is infrastructure heavy solutions. Yes, creating a VM requires CPU, requires memory, requires storage, and on top of it, you will have to install OS and do the configuration, which would be infrastructure heavy dependent. And believe me, infrastructure costs a lot of money to the organization. Fourth, log aggregation. Let's take an example of any client server model wherein the master start the test and the tests are started in various agents, be it a JMeter or a Selenium in terms of starting the test. My test generates lot of logs. And if I have even a minimum of 10 users, 10 VMs will be there, and every the people have to go to each and every VM to check, get the logs and see how the logs are there, and then how the test is performing, then collect all the logs after the execution is completed, and then report it out to the management. It takes significant amount of time and bandwidth of our engineers. The last one, execution monitoring. Again, we use the client server model. We start the execution. What happens if one of the tests are crashed or if the VM is down? So as an reliability and performance team, we have to be continuously monitoring all the VM, all the tests that are running and all the VMs in which the tests are running, which is time consuming and which is inefficient at all. As a performance team, we would like to spend our valuable time in debugging the problems, improving efficiency, rather than maintaining the infrastructure and spending a lot of time in analyzing and collecting the logs from various multiple sources. These are all predominantly 5 bottlenecks that encouraged us, that motivated us to work on a next gen framework. Now it's time to talk about the use case. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. As you can see, the remote monitoring applications are typically used in the hospitals for remote monitoring of patients. This example does the same thing. It's a fetal monitor application as an example that we have taken, and we have developed a framework out of it. And the same framework can be done for various other tools as well. In this example, you can see that there is a fetal monitoring application which gets data from various fetal monitors that are attached over the network. At one end, these fetal monitors are attached to the patient, wherein it gives the vital informations like blood pressure, temperature, and heart rate, as well as sp2. Yes, of course, every now after this pandemic everybody knows what is sp2. And there is attached frame fetal monitors would get the data from each and every patient, and it passes it on to the fetal monitoring system. What fetal monitoring system does, it would process all the data that is being given to it by the various sources, and it would display it on the screen. You can see on your right hand side typical screens of fetal monitoring applications, wherein all the data is being displayed, and all the vital parameters have been displayed, and you can see the alert as well. The alert will be displayed by the fetal monitor system if any of the vital parameters are abnormal. For example, if if the sp2 goes below 90%, or if the blood pressure goes below 60 or 50, or even if it goes above 150, it would be displayed on the screen. So this is a exact use case that we have adopted. And for us, what we will have to do is we have to measure the performance of a fetal monitor to UI. That means the how much time does it take for a message to pass the moment it is generated from a fetal monitor to be displayed on the UI. And it is utmost important because there is a guideline that is being provided by health authorities, and in order to get approval we will have to pass these guidelines, and performance is utmost important here. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, we talked about the challenges that we were facing, and then the use case. Now it's a time to get back to the implementation and get our hands dirty how we can implement it. On the extreme right side, you will see the server which has hosted the service, the web service, as well as our fetal monitoring service, I would say. On the middle, you will see the Kubernetes cluster on which we have deployed all our pods, all our applications and the tests. And on the extreme left side, you will see the configuration management. The heart of this framework is the GUI test, which are deployed as a pod here, that actually measures the performance of a patient's vital. This has been developed in Java, and we have created a Docker image out of it, and it has been deployed in a Kubernetes cluster. The test would implement the fetal monitor simulators as well, because we cannot measure the performance with the devices also. So we will have to develop a simulator, and that particular simulator would measure the performance from the time the data is sent to the system till it is displayed on the screen. So that's in nutshell, that's about our GUI test, which measures the performance. Also it implements the simulator here. And now comes the test logs. The test logs are being generated by the GUI test, are being pushed to our logging software. So logging is, again, it could be anything like a ELK, which can be a part of your Kubernetes cluster as well. And the test metrics and the CPU and memory utilization has been measured through the monitoring applications like Prometheus or any other stuff. In the middle, as I said, we will see the Kubernetes cluster, which would actually maintain all our infrastructure right from master to all the slave nodes here. See, what user does here is that on the left hand side, we can see the test configuration system, and to start a test, what user would do is he would deploy the application on the server, and he will create a Kubernetes cluster, and then most of the time it is done by the operations team here. And as a performance engineer, what he would do is that he would create a configuration file and feed that particular configuration file to the configuration script, which would actually communicate with the Kubernetes cluster deployment object, and then create a pods out of the tests. So the number of pods are created are directly proportional to the number of users that you would like you specify in the configuration part of it. So once you give the configuration and start the test, you it is up to the Kubernetes to schedule the job, and it will run the job as usual. There is no change in there. Now, if at all, if a user has to change the configuration, let's say that he has to increase the number of clients. Initially he started with 5, and he feels that the data is going good and he's not able to find any issues, and he wants to increase the number of clients during the execution. There, it's a matter of going to the configuration and changing it, which will use the deployment object and scale the number of pods. Either it will scale up or scale down, hence increasing or decreasing the number of clients or users. And predominantly we are using Kubernetes API to communicate with the Kubernetes cluster to scale up or scale down or do any sorts of operations on the Kubernetes cluster here. Now, during the initial stage, we talked about the challenges that we have faced. We talked about the use cases. What is the problem on what is the use case that on which we are going to solve the problem? And the third part is how we are solving the problem. Now let's recap on the challenges that we have faced and how we are solving this, how we have solved that problem. Yes, the first problem or a first bottleneck is predefined scale approach. We have right now, at that time we had specified that the predefined scale approach is not very easy with the traditional approach, but with this it's a matter of changing the configuration during the execution, which would again increase the number of increase or decrease the number of parts. That's how we have achieved dynamic scaling here. The next one, yes, managing scaling is laborious. Yes, in the earlier case what happened was we were actually using the VMs to scale our users. But here, since we are using the pods and we are using the orchestration engine like Kubernetes, I do not have to worry about scaling at all. Scaling is I do not have to go back and create a VM and configure it and then add that to a cluster. No, nothing of that sort. Here, go and change the configuration file. Boom, the number of users have increased to the prescribed limit, whatever it is. Yes, infrastructure heavy solutions. Everybody in the as we all know here that the pods are very lightweight. The pods are even the image Docker images are very lightweight in comparison with VM. Of course they are not a replacement for UI, but in our use case, yes, it is a replacement for UI, wherein for a VM, wherein it takes hardly 1 or 2 minutes to bring up a pod in a Kubernetes cluster. Again, it depends on our settings, but it wouldn't take more than 2 to 3 minutes in comparison with 30 minutes for a virtual machine. Log aggregation. That problem we have solved by using the monitoring tools, something called as ELK, and push all our data, their logs there. And what that would do is it would collect the logs and keep it at a centralized location. And we are using something, the tools like Kibana to go through the logs and get the execution status and see if there are any failures. And it was very easy to debug because all the logs at one shot without even a single second spent by an engineer. And the last problem was execution monitoring. There we discussed about what if a test crashes. Here, if the test crashes, what we are doing is that automatic recovery is done through the Kubernetes cluster by liveliness probe. We have implemented liveliness probe in our system, so it would return back the if there is any problem, and if the pod goes down by any chance, Kubernetes will reschedule a new pod and terminate the one that is creating issues. So these are all some of the challenges that we have implement avoided through scaling from the containers. Also, in case of as far as the infrastructure is concerned, If this particular Kubernetes has been, if it is deployed on the cloud providers like EKS or AKS, I do not even have to maintain a cluster. Everything is done by either AWS or Azure based on which service provider you are using. And as a performance people, we can spend good amount of time in improving our software and execution rather than spending time on infrastructure, and hence company also saves money. To conclude, we would like to tell that it is being designed to make use of machine learning techniques for efficient test planning as well as containerization to make use of dynamic scaling, auto recovery, as well as low compute requirements. And also, please note that this framework is not a replacement for traditional performance tools that are available in the market here, but they work in conjunction with them in order to simulate production like environments. Thank you all for your time to attend, taking the time to attend this presentation, and have a wonderful day. Now it's time to shoot your questions to us, and we are more than happy to answer your doubts. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Venkatesh. Thanks a lot, everybody.
There is a question: is the GUI test pod only sends the CPU network memory resource to logging? No, it will not send the only CPU. CPU memory is being extracted by the uh, Prometheus. It will not be sending. It is worry. It will be worried about sending the performance related data to the logging software. So that way we will know what is the performance of each iteration and all those things. Did that answer your question?